5 college students were exploring an unknown cave. Just as they were getting ready to head back, one of the team members mysteriously disappeared. What made it even stranger was that the others did not immediately begin a rescue attempt. Instead, they hurriedly carried their caving equipment out of the cave. And it was this unusual decision that left the missing student buried in darkness to this day. At around 11:30 a.m. on January 5, 2008, 5 team members set out from the cave entrance and began moving deeper inside. The cave floor was rough and slippery. The main passage kept descending, and they had to pass through multiple narrow gaps between rock walls, making the route extremely difficult. Because it was the winter dry season, the middle section of the passage, which was normally covered by water in the summer, was completely exposed. This allowed the team to move faster than expected. At around 2:30 in the afternoon, they successfully reached the shore of the underground lake at the deepest part of the cave. The 5 of them rested and observed the area near the shore. But just as they were preparing to return, Yuki Akakura, who was at the back of the group, suddenly jumped into the lake. It was January. Outside, it was snowing. Yuki Akakura was not wearing any diving equipment. Without warning, he leaped into the water. The other members immediately shouted his name. Their voices echoed again and again through the closed cave space, but they never received any response. The shore was about 5 meters above the surface of the lake, and none of them had professional diving gear. They did not dare jump in blindly to search for him. All they could do was repeatedly search along the edge of the lake. After searching for about 40 minutes and still finding no trace of Yuki Akakura, the group realized how serious the situation had become. Deep inside the cave, there was absolutely no cell phone signal, making it impossible to call for help. So the entire group immediately turned back and followed the same route toward the cave entrance. The return trip was even more difficult than the way in. Because of anxiety and exhaustion, their pace slowed down significantly. It took them more than 3 hours to get out. Shortly after 6 p.m., the 4 remaining members finally reached the cave entrance and immediately called the police, reporting that their teammate had disappeared. After receiving the emergency call, the first group of police officers and firefighters arrived at the cave entrance that night. After several hours of gathering equipment and confirming the route, the first search and rescue team officially entered the cave at around 11 p.m. That night's search could only be carried out using an inflatable boat, underwater cameras, and probing rods. After an entire night of moving and searching, the rescuers were physically exhausted. The risks of continuing overnight operations inside the cave also increased. On the morning of January 6th, the search team temporarily withdrew to rest, while coordinating more support personnel and lightweight diving equipment suitable for the cave. Later that morning, additional firefighting dive support teams arrived one after another, and a large-scale full-coverage search officially began. The rescuers split into multiple groups. One group advanced along the main passage, checking every side tunnel and crack in the rock walls to determine whether the missing student had gotten lost or trapped during the return route. Another group entered the underground lake and was responsible for searching along the shore and underwater. But the underwater search was far more difficult than expected. The lake water was filled with suspended limestone particles and bottom silt. Visibility underwater was less than 1 meter. Even with powerful diving lights, the visible range was only a few dozen centimeters. The bottom of the lake was covered in thick, soft mud. Even the slightest movement could stir up large amounts of sediment, making visibility even worse. At the same time, the water temperature was extremely low. Even while wearing professional dry suits designed for cold water diving, divers could only stay underwater for 20 to 30 minutes. Any longer than that, and they faced a serious risk of hypothermia. Over the next few days, the scale of the search continued to expand. Firefighting dive teams from surrounding areas and volunteer cave explorers joined the effort one after another. In total, more than 200 people took part in the search. Ground teams expanded the search to every known branch passage of the cave. They even searched the mountain forest area around the entrance to confirm that the missing student had not somehow left the cave on his own and gotten lost outside. Underwater search teams completed multiple dives each day, conducting a full coverage sweep of the main area of the underground lake. They gradually confirmed the shape of the lake bed and the distribution of the underground river entrances. By January 10, the large-scale search had continued for 6 full days. They believed that Yuki Akakura, wearing only inner quick-dry clothing when he entered the water, may have suffered cold water immersion shock in an extremely short amount of time. The sudden cold could have struck his chest and triggered a reflex cardiac arrest, or caused his arm and leg muscles to seize up rapidly. He may have completely lost the ability to save himself. He might not even have had time to call for help before sinking below the surface. This theory explains why the people on shore never heard any unusual sound from him. It also matches the police's main investigative direction, which treated the case as an accidental drowning. Some civilian geology enthusiasts also analyzed hydrological data from the karst region in northern Okayama prefecture. They suggested that the bottom of the underground lake may be covered with several meters of soft organic mud and limestone sediment. After a person drowns and sinks, the body could quickly become trapped in the mud and completely buried by sediment. With underwater visibility below 1 meter, it would be extremely difficult for rescue divers relying mostly on touch to find a body buried in the silt. And if the current continued flowing inward through the underground river, it could have dragged the body into a narrow, deep karst passage, trapping it in a sealed space that rescuers could not reach. Aside from that, the most controversial part of the public discussion focused on the behavior of the 4 people who were with him. The 4 companions officially called the police after leaving the cave at around 6 p.m. Since the trip from the underground lake to the entrance took about 3 hours, that means they must have started returning sometime after 3 p.m. In other words, there was a gap of more than 40 minutes between Yuki Akakura's disappearance and the moment they began heading back. Critics argued that a missing person situation inside a cave was a high-risk emergency, and that delaying the call for help for more than half an hour did not seem reasonable. Most importantly, they claimed that the group did not carry out any real rescue measures. Some suspected that the companions may have used that time to coordinate their story or deal with related items. However, people with a more neutral view pointed out that everyone at the scene had been shocked and terrified by the sudden incident. They had no professional equipment and no realistic ability to carry out a water rescue. Under those conditions, taking a brief moment to regroup before returning to the entrance for help fit the normal logic of a student exploration team. Later, the police questioned the 4 companions separately multiple times. Their statements were highly consistent in detail, with no logical contradictions. The items at the scene were intact, and no evidence of human harm was found. Because of this, the possibility of murder was ruled out.